Did you not look and sort of?
Oh, I did the look. I nudged him at one point.
Sort yourself out.
And he'd just be sat there like this, and then we'd just go like, and so that's in my left ear for the entire screen.
Oh god, that's terrible.
I know. So it'll be like, "Hey Barbie, hey kid."
So in the lead up to go and see Oppenheimer, I very much enjoyed on my YouTube and my social media the multiple sit-down sofa chats with Christopher Nolan, Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon. Because not only great actors, right, but they are all clearly so gassed to be in this film that they really enjoyed their parts in.
Yeah.
It's been like critically successful. And you know, Robert Downey Jr. is just so happy to be here in this movie that's not about Iron Man. And Cillian Murphy, who I just discovered is, oh my God, he is so amazing. I sort of and derp my way through these interviews. And like Cillian Murphy is like, being just so surrounded by immeasurable praise and like new fame, but he's so humble. And so the interview will be like, so like, you know, this film's about nuclear bombs. Would you own a nuclear bomb? And he's like, I don't really know how to answer that, really. I think when people...
I'll be going to see Barbie for
when you see what Chris has done on the big screen.
Oh, I think it's wonderful
and
for the industry.
Emily Blunt is just so...
She's funny.
English
Her and Matt Damon as a pair. They've been doing interviews together. Well, they did. This is all pre-strike. But like, the... Matt Damon will try it.
So happy to be
when Ben and I were making Good Will Hunting, and Emily will come and go, you sound ridiculous.
She's
goodness
just so
sake.
Relatable, like someone who works across you at the office, like immeasurably famous and wealthy, but just like, oh, I'm so English.
You expect her to say something like, Janet, have you seen that email?
Whereas Matt Damon, it's like, I'm big, but I'm not like the star of this movie, but I'm in it.
Yeah, when he's like, I was working with Jack Nicholson on that thing. He's what I noticed about Matt Damon in all the interviews, he's a really good raconteur. He's a really good storyteller and anecdote teller. He's a good mimic, but not too much speed. But he's just a good dinner. He would be a great dinner party guest.
Yeah, really good.
Polite.
Holds his own ego as well, I think, either. Like, knows he's probably the most successful person in the room. He doesn't need to prove it. And then, of course, Christopher Nolan, you know, incredibly thought-provoking, incredibly softly spoken, finds a way to say an awful lot, but without actually ever really making a definitive statement on anything. Yeah. You know,
it's also like...
Ask him any controversial question, and he will answer it, but actually I have no idea what he actually thinks on it.
It's also that like when Cillian Murphy gets asked a question, you can see that he's like, well, you know, I don't. I'm an actor. I don't really want to.
I don't really want to.
But Christopher Nolan, it almost has a kind of like, well, yeah, but I've already thought about that.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, you're right to ask me that question because it's really important. But I've also, you know, it doesn't interest me that much because I've already thought about it in my head.
Whereas Robert Downey Jr. is just, he always at the end of the sentence goes up. And it's just amazing when you see what Cillian he just discovered Cillian Murphy. He's like, you sir, Mr. Cillian here are so incredible.
RDJ, as I'll call him, is looking very in all these interviews. Looks very like trimmed, doesn't he? Looks very sort of like
he looks good.
Thin, like post Iron Man workout. Yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah, $100 million will really help too. Like fuck you, money.
Also to make you look after yourself.
Yeah.
Speaking of Barbenheimer, welcome everyone to our Barbenheimer episode.
The Barbenheimer episode.
We are, I think I said just an episode. I think I slipped. Welcome to our Barbenheimer episode. We've all been excited about this all year, and we're finally here. Mm-hmm. And I will say that before we go to talk about these films, I have loved this whole phenomenon.
Yeah.
And seeing it manifest in the flesh, in particularly my Barbie screening.
Yeah. Oh my God.
People dressed up to the nines. I watched the previous screening come out. And it was like the Macy's Day Parade. Yeah. It was fantastic seeing the effort and the level of people dressed up to. It was like a Star Wars or a Harry Potter.
Just gonna say the thing.
But even those screens I've been to in the past have not seen this much. And so just that level of engagement with not only Barbie, then Barbie Oppenheimer, the Barbenheimer crossover. I can't remember the last time that a film event organically became zeitgeisty. I can't remember the last time that cinema, it's not just film, it's going to the cinema, became a zeitgeist event. And in a way, it's quite touching. And I'm like, there is hope. And you can't say that cinema is dead. No marketing executive in the world would have thought to have paired these two and made a thing out of it.
No.
Only the internet, organic, in the wild, can do this. And I've been really heartwarmed to have seen it.
When was the last time you've seen that outside of a Star Wars or Marvel property?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the first thing I think of is like my opening night screening of The Force Awakens, which was like very, very special. There was a guy dressed as Chewbacca when I went. That's it. But it was like still. Now we look back at it like that's Star Wars.
Yeah, still in its own little. Yeah.
It's wonderful. It was a wonderful experience. But this is that was always they will always feel. I feel like Star Wars people always like film. They've always would have gone to see it. Whereas this is just permeated through.
Yeah, and I've seen people wearing Barbie tutus and Oppenheimer hats, and I've seen people blending the two, and I've really enjoyed it. On this topic of simultaneous releases. Somebody on Instagram very kindly reached out and shared this post from the Academy, the Oscars. This post is from Amy, who sent this to us, about his other famous films that have come out on the same day. So not just Barbie and Oppenheimer. So the most recent examples here are, well, the one that has been shared a lot is that 15 years ago we had The Dark Knight and Mamma Mia, which is probably the closest thing you could get to
Both did very well in their time. Very much counter-programming to each other.
So we've got 1982, we've got Blade Runner and The Thing. Two science fiction films. I don't say that's counter-programming, but it's just two same. But also
less supposed, but I'll give it. Yeah.
They always say The Thing did badly because it came out in July and it's a massive winter film. It's set in Antarctica. No, everyone was like, "What the fuck?"
Cold watching it.
Yeah, exactly. So you had Blade Runner and The Thing. You had Dark Knight, Mamma Mia. You had The Matrix and 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, really?
I know. How about that? That was on March 31st, 1999.
Okay.
You've got Die Hard and A Fish Called Wanda in July 1988. Die Hard came out in July again. It's just like that's a Christmas film.
Yeah.
Elf and Love Actually, I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same year. Interesting that two, I guess, still revisited Christmas films came out on the same year. These are very different. Jumanji and Heat.
Nice.
On December the 15th.
Both have a place in cinema history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
December 15th, 1995. Heat is not the kind of film I would have expected to be released at Christmas time. Two other different ones as well, earlier in 1995. Toy Story and Casino. On November 22nd, 1995.
Energies.
Massively different energies.
Yeah.
And very similar energies.
But that's fine, though, because the audiences aren't... That's just... You don't even acknowledge it.
There's no crossover, yeah. But this is a crossover, I think. June 8th, 1984, Ghostbusters and Gremlins on the same day. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that post.
Speaking of, clashes, like just this... We've talked about how crazy July and June have been. We've had Indiana Jones... 5. Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Barbie, Oppenheimer, and the rest. Like, you got Asteroid City and other things. That is, if I was Mission Impossible, if I was Tom Cruise, I'd be thinking, I should be getting...
Mr. Impossible.
Mr. Impossible, the Impossible Man. I should be getting, like, a couple more weeks of my film being the biggest thing. But the Barbenheimer's just dwarfed it. There's no doubt it must be affecting Mission Impossible. I'm sure it's done very well, but
my hope is that maybe
people aren't seeing that this weekend, really.
No, but maybe next weekend they'll go, well, I've seen Barbie and Oppenheimer now, and I didn't get a chance to see Mission Impossible. I don't know. I did go and watch Mission Impossible.
Yes,
I don't know if we want to talk about that now. Or maybe perhaps we have some emails in there. Maybe we want to keep this on for Barbie and Oppenheimer. So when there's a moment, I will talk about. I only have a little brief thing to say about Mission Impossible 7, which I have now seen. But this episode, James, is all about Barbie and Oppenheimer. So we've both been to see it.
We've both seen it.
You saw Barbie first.
I did.
On Saturday.
Saturday daytime.
With your family.
With my family. Mum and dad dressed in pink.
Fantastic.
Mum brought us,
your mum looked amazing.
She had pink pom-poms, pink fishnet top, pink everything else, pink rose heart glasses.
Brilliant.
Insisted on taking pictures throughout the whole day. Not the screen.
Not the screen,
just, going all in. And I'll get into it, but what it was like to be in that screening with everyone dressed in pink. Crazy.
And of course, this is the school holidays as well. That's what I realised yesterday.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Kids around. And you and I saw IMAX together.
Yeah.
We went to the IMAX to see Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
On Sunday, pretty much blew out the whole day.
Yeah.
We saw a midday screening.
No pun intended.
That's the whole day gone. And then I saw Barbie last night.
Yeah.
in Central
By the way,
London.
before we get into any of the reviews, I am so glad. I know people have done this on the same day, and like more power to you. I'm just so glad I didn't watch these in the same day.
God, yeah.
We'll get into Oppenheimer, but when Oppenheimer wrapped, on the tone that it ends with, I just was like a little bit shooken, and I felt very intense, and I would not have been in the right mind at all to go and see Barbie.
I think it would have been really unfair on Barbie.
It would have been really strange.
Also, the messaging of Barbie, conversely, would have made me view Oppenheimer much more through a different lens. I mean, if I'd watched it straight afterwards, I would have gone, you bunch of Kens. Yeah, absolute bunch of Kens.
Men deciding to build the bomb.
Frustrated about, because the wars will go your way. Yeah. Hopefully these two female characters can come in and help.
So, again, so for the phenomenon. But I'm glad I had 24 hours and a night's sleep and a meal and a cup of tea to separate
processing
my two
time.
Experiences. Just to be said, we are going to be talking spoiler-free for these films. And what we're going to do is we're going to record our impressions of these films. We're going to record some more plot-detailed spoiler impressions of these films, which is going to go out Friday. So if you want to hear us talk even more about the films, stay tuned. We're going to put that out later.
And many of you have written in with your correspondence about your impressions of the film. We hope to read as many of those out as we can, either on this episode or in the spoiler chat as well. So stay tuned. So without further ado, James, let's begin our Barbenheimer?
I say it in an accent.
Barbenheimer episode. Guys, Barbie is finally out and it is made to be seen on the big screen. And View has the ultimate seat, screen and sound experience. They have great value screenings every day from as little as $4.99 when booked online in selected venues.
Guys, View has got a brand new exclusive candy floss flavored Tango Ice Blast to celebrate the release of Barbie. They sold 26,000 litres of it in the opening weekend, so it must be good. They also have new exclusive Coke Fusion flavours that are made for popcorn pairings. So perhaps you fancy going with something sweet with cherry vanilla for Barbie or something salty with orange cherry for Oppenheimer.
View has loads of Barbie and Oppenheimer screenings coming out in the next few weeks, so it's very easy for you to make your own Barbenheimer double bill if you fancy.
You can find more info on screenings at myview.com.
James, before we go into Barbie a second, could I just describe to you my cinema screen experience?
Please do.
Barbie. So obviously, this isn't actually about the costumes and stuff. That was great. Really enjoyed that. Full screening room. It was great. I really enjoyed it. And that energy. Just one of those things that you can't do when you go out. You can't, predict when you go out into the public and stuff. I ended up sitting next to a man who I later realized was much, much older in his years, who had a strong, hacking, phlegmatic cough. That would intersperse the viewing of Barbie. I will admit it was very, very distracting. So James, just to illustrate what I mean, if you could just broadly just describe the film Barbie, who's in it and who's it's directed by, and I will give you an indication of what it was like to sit next to this person. Please proceed.
Barbie is a film directed Greta Gerwig, starring Margaret. Really? Is it like those TikTok memes of dads? You're joking.
No, I'm
Were
not
you
joking.
not like, did you not look and sort of...
Oh, I did the look. I nudged him at one
like
point.
Sort yourself out.
This guy was trying not to do that. It was clearly an involuntary thing. But I was like, what the fuck?
Is there like popcorn kernels stuck in his throat?
No, and he'd just be sat there like this, and then we'd just go like... and so that's in my left ear for the entire screen.
Oh God, that's terrible.
I know, so it'll be like, hey Barbie, hey kid. So
Get out, demon!
I will say that I was a little bit distracted.
Oh, that's so annoying.
The only thing that gave me comfort was that when the lights came up at the end and this guy got up, I was like, oh, he's old. Like he was like quite doddery and like picked up his coat.
Was it throughout?
It was intermittent throughout, yes. There was no point where he went, oh, thank goodness for that. I feel so much better.
Oh my God, yeah. That's really annoying because it's a continuous immersion breaker when you're trying to get involved in the film.
Yes, and I do think it did have an effect, frankly. Not too negative, but I got the increasing sense that I was like, I'm enjoying this, but I will need to watch this film again.
So annoying.
And I do apologize to our listeners for hearing that. But that aside, let's talk about Barbie. Greta Gerwig's Barbie, which is out now. So did you know that a Barbie movie has been on the cards for some time?
I've heard rumblings.
In 2009, Mattel signed a deal with, I believe, Sony to make a Barbie movie. That went through production, then that eventually fell through. Then Amy Schumer was attached
Yes.
to write and star in. And the director who was attached with that was speaking about it, about how difficult it was. And she was saying that, you know, even 10 years ago, the feminist discourse, rather, was still much different to how it is today. And everyone was very focused on doing like a girl boss, badass success story that kind of undermined what made Barbie who she was originally, right? It kind of like was a massive step away from the brand identity without trying to reconcile the brand identity. And they were very much aware that like the Lego movie had come out and they'd done it so well. Anyway, that fell through. Later, Anne Hathaway was attached. Patty Jenkins at one point was floating around it. And even though she didn't end up being involved, but Margot Robbie has apparently since said that Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman was a big step in helping to get films like this made.
Wow, that is
ultimately, after Little Women, Greta Gerwig became attached, and Margot Robbie obviously is involved as a producer. And then Greta Gerwig not only directs this, but writes this alongside her creative partner, Noah Baumbach, who obviously wrote and directed many other films, Marriage Story, etc. And so we get Barbie. And anyone who knows Greta Gerwig, who has enjoyed Lady Bird and has enjoyed Little Women as we have, will know that she is a creative talent, both as an actor and a writer and a director, brimming with ideas and creativity, and is a real new voice that we all have enjoyed watching. I mean, I say all, but I speak for us definitely that we love Greta Gerwig.
It's great in White Noise that came out this year as well.
Oh, right. That's absolutely. I didn't see that. Of course, no, Baumbach's film. So, Barbie. Mattel's Barbie, made with, you know, the collaboration of the toy company Mattel. And
featuring Mattel.
Featuring Mattel.
Well, yeah.
And, you know, Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig, they write this screenplay, which is so bold and meta and strange that Margot Robbie reads and goes, this is fantastic, but of course, they'll never get made. She has since publicly said how great Mattel was. I mean, obviously she has to say how great Mattel was. They're paying the bill. But she has said she was surprised at how collaborative and open they were to this direction and how much of it they were able to keep in the final cut. So, Greta Gerwig's Barbie is this. We are in Barbie Land. Barbie Land is a place where Barbies exist. And there are all kinds of Barbies. There's stereotypical Barbie, played by Margot Robbie. But there's also Senator Barbie, President Barbie, Astronaut Barbie, Pilot Barbie, Barbies wherever you look. Hi Barbie, hi Barbie, hi Barbie. Everything is pink and wonderful, and everyone's house is a Barbie house. Probably a reference to a different, you know, collection. I'm sure that, if you are a niche collector of Barbies, loads in there, loads of stuff in there for you. Everything is great. Everything is pink and fabulous, and everyone gets on, and women are empowered, and it's this utopian society, and everything is great.
Barbie can be anything.
Barbie can be anything, and they are everything, and everyone's great. You also have, on the sidelines, a few Kens, played by Ryan Gosling and
Simulia.
Thank you from Shang-Chi, and also Alan. Yeah. Michael Cera as the character of Alan, just the one Alan. And in this world, it's all fun and party and beach ball, and then what happens is Margot Robbie's Barbie suddenly, out of nowhere, gets a creeping sense of self-awareness, a creeping sense of her existential place within this universe, thoughts of death and the beyond, and what it all means. Plagued by these thoughts, she visits Weird Barbie, Kate McKinnon, who lives like the wise Greek figure up in a weird Barbie house.
Permanently in the splits.
Yes. Yeah. And Kate McKinnon, as Weird Barbie, explains to her that there is Barbie world and there is the real world. And what is happening might be related to the real world. And you, Barbie, might have to go to the real world to sort what is happening with you. Otherwise, bad things will happen. That is as far as I'll go in terms of plot. And you can use your imagination and piece together the rest about what happens next. So, James, that's the setup for Barbie, Greta Gerwig's Barbie. It's pink, it's fabulous, it's there, it's arrived, it's here. What are your thoughts?
We have already sort of half covered my first how I frame going in to talk about this film, which is that it is no longer just a film, this Barbie phenomenon. I think it has grown so much larger than just a piece of cinema. When I look at the clear, huge marketing endorsed spend that's gone in ahead of this,
yes,
it's unlike anything I've ever seen. Yes, please.
$143 million budget with estimated $70 million on marketing and tie-ins. I mean, that's half the film's budget, basically. And anyone who's walked down a street in the world recently will have seen countless brand activations and integrations from like Airbnb to...
I literally, when I walk down the street or go on the internet, I feel like, oh, hi, Barbie.
Yes,
like seeing the ad on the bus. Oh, hi, Barbie.
Yeah.
Like the clothing brand integration. Oh, hi, Barbie. Confectionery, everything.
Yes.
I am like completely...
Barbified.
Just barbified. You add that with the thing we both experienced, this people turning up in pink, having this buzz of excitement in the cinema that I can't quite relate to anything else before. And I do get this sense that like the film is now like needing to match the energy going in.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this film is that, you talked about Mattel and the film sort of being, in development for a long time. It is not just a film. It feels like it is both a complete brand rejuvenation of an otherwise dormant IP and a redefining of what Barbie means in 2023. And so this sense of excitement, and the film opens to what I have to describe as stunning production design. Plot, anything else aside, the reveal of Barbie's dream house, the plastic world, the sort of old studio style flat black drop lighting. I was completely in awe of it. And I went to see it with both my sisters, and my middle sister, who's like 3 years older than me, used to play with Barbies a lot. And there are a couple of moments where like Hal's reveals happened. Like the fold out, like the medical thing in the house where she went, because she still had that sense of wonder of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm seeing this. I'd never really seen anything like Toys to Life done like that before. Toy Story represents something really different. This was like in the real world, knock on the plastic. So I just thought it was completely, everyone's eyes just
Lego
widened.
movie?
Lego movie, yeah, but there was
It's more animation-y, isn't it? Stop motion,
wasn't it?
kind of, yeah.
What started is a film that I think matches the energy of the people in the room. And I think it's a script that I enjoyed seeing, was really sharp and really smart. And I thought, oh, this is like one of those smart, dumb films. Like, like Team America was like really stupid, but like it's such a smart film for its time, I think. I've not seen it in a really long time.
Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion as well, I would say.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, this is just like such a huge satire, but it's really, really smart, and I can tell. And it's a real attempt to make a movie about a fantastical world interacting with our own. And, seeing Barbie's dream house set, amazing. I think Margot Robbie is brilliant in this. She's
absolutely.
weirdly the perfect casting for it, which is like almost acknowledged in the film. I think there's a lot she has to do in it in terms of playing this version of Barbie that we know, coming to terms with like self-realization and becoming conscious, and then like realizing what to do with that new perspective. Ryan Gosling's Ken.
Wow, yes.
It's probably, and I really like Ryan Gosling, one of his best ever roles.
I think so, yeah.
And we've seen him do funny before.
Have we? Have we seen like The Nice Guys,
The Nice
maybe
Guys.
Crazy Stupid Love? But I think this is his most physical comedic performance. Yeah.
And you can tell he just threw himself into it. And Ken made me laugh consistently throughout the entire film. And I think, look, you can tell that this has been written and made by people that have something to say. It is not a hollow and thin script.
A corporate exercise.
It's not like, I actually found, I said this when I reviewed Mario, that I felt like it was a bit corporate approved. I felt like it was very safe. I wanted more of satire. This really didn't feel like fingerprints had been over it at all. So I do get the sense that this is very pointed and very direct. And it's a really wonderful satirization of not just Barbie world, but our own world. And it represents as a really fun extreme of both. I think if I was to be quite brutal, I'd say that there are certain moments where different parts in the world don't quite land. And I'm a little bit confused about some of the sequences feeling a bit tonally spliced. I'm not quite sure where they land. I think towards the end, the film does feel a little bit burdened by how much it tries to solve. The film covers so much, and it gives me so much to laugh at and so much to think about. I have a couple of moments towards the end where I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. And I'm still having a great time, but I think you've maybe just gone so far in with it. I'm a little bit like, bring me back down. It's like you've zoomed out too much.
Tightrope walk.
It really is. And I think mostly it really does succeed. But that ultimately, I think it manages weirdly to work for people who love Barbie and people who hate Barbie. Like you could dip in and be the first. I think that's a really smart place to line. I think it's a wickedly smart ridiculing of humanity and the weird creations we have and how we like to play and assign ideas of gender.
And not a kids' film.
No, it really isn't.
There was probably a 6-year-old girl in my screening, and I felt like saying,
"It's true. I didn't think about that. It's not. It's like
film. Fantastic Mr. Fox,
and
I don't think
that's
the problem. I think it's probably like 13 up, and that's not or 12. I don't want to insult the intelligence of children.
No, that's true.
And I'm not saying that.
And I think a lot of it's made for young girls.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's nothing that kids can't engage in this, but I think that its maximum level is writ large on is an adult audience, and just to hear the laughters and the reaction in the room.
It's not a Trolls movie.
No, not at all.
Nothing against Trolls.
But it's not also one of those films. I don't think it was also split where it was like this bit for the kids, this bit for the adults, this bit for the kids. I think it was much more. I would say I agree with everything you say. I think that it's when you say it's made with an idea, it's so clear that Greta Gerwig has been like, if you bring me in, let me do my thing because I'm not interested in making a hollow exercise. And it is a real tightrope to walk because there have been other examples of films where you let in someone who wants to make things meta, absurd, self-referential, and it can fall flat in its face. And I never got the sense that it was ever going to tip over, even when I agree where the balance between its message and its story become a little bit uneven.
Just about starting.
I had so much confidence in Gerwig's vision and idea and belief in her that I still enjoyed her company. And actually that's a big thing. I really enjoyed spending time with Greta Gerwig as a presence, as a filmmaker throughout this whole film. I think that it's clear in so many ways that she loves filmmaking and she loves cinema. There are so many references, like, for example, the Mattel boardroom, she has said is Dr. Strangelove. It's the same table instead of Dr. Strangelove. There's a Kubrickian opening and Kubrickian corridors. There's some Jacques Demy references as well. If you can go online and read all about the references. For me, I got a bit of Elf. Yeah, not just because the Will Ferrell. Obviously, the Lego movie, the third act of the Lego movie informs, I think, the whole of this.
Toy Story 3 thing of don't throw away your toys.
Yes.
Very much
also, if anyone has seen the Hal Ashby film Being There, I think there's a touch of that as well with Peter Sellers.
Big as well.
Big, yes, absolutely. I mean, apparently even things like The Red Shoes, Adam and Eve, the story of Adam and Eve as well. And Greta Gerwig talks about being, raised at a Catholic school, and maybe that has informed her. But actually, the whole thing about Eden and self-awareness, suddenly becoming self-aware, and
a greater plane existing beyond our own,
exactly,
control of something.
I agree. I love all things with Ken. What I love is that there were jokes relating to Ken and masculinity and the patriarchy that I saw it with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
That only I found very, very funny. And she maybe laughed at, or it might have gone completely over her head, but conversely, there were jokes that went over my head that she found really funny relating to womanhood and femininity and feminism, which is great. I love that sometimes. And it felt like a little thing for me. And some of the observations and the skewering of men is brilliant. And there's a whole interaction between Will Ferrell, who's just doing the most Will Ferrell in the best possible way performance ever. I can see Greta Gerwig being like, this role needs Will Ferrell, and Will Ferrell being like, do you want me to do Will Ferrell? And
you can call me mother.
His interaction with Barbie in the Mattel headquarters is just like so funny and just sends up like male pack mentality in the most silliest fun, but also like, gloves on way. It's not below the belt. It's not that would matter, but I just think that's really, really charming.
I also think Will Ferrell's casting and comedic style also helps the audience understand that the real world in the Barbie movie is also surrealist.
Yes.
Like this boardroom with like likes of Jamie Demetriou, who I really enjoyed in there. Yeah. Like this also is like completely nuts.
Yes.
And it's also to be taken with a pinch of salt. Yes. It's an impression of our real world.
Well, exactly. And going into Barbie, I really didn't know what to expect because obviously we know Greta Gerwig has such a strong style. And I'm so glad that the film has been able to deliver, again, mostly successfully, absurdist, surrealist, meta kind of commentary that works with the brand. I laughed a good few times. Michael Cera, great to have him in this.
He's
a great walk-on moment with Rob Brydon Just did you see
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
little
did see.
blink you'll miss Rob
Show
Brydon?
your daddy again. Yeah.
But I think there's so much to enjoy, and I really enjoyed spending time with Greta Gerwig and her company in this. And I 2/3 of the way through, not just because of the hacking cough to my left, but I was like, I really look forward to rewatching this because it is made so meticulously and so detailed. I want to pick it all up.
And visual gags as well.
And also, I think on a deeper level, what I really was warned by is that for all its slight imbalance, that it's made Greta Gerwig. You said about it's made for people who love Barbie and like you understand. Greta Gerwig, I just think in this film, the film is able to emulate such a pride and love and warmth for women.
Yeah.
That it's really heartwarming just to be kind of witness to that.
Yeah.
Greta Gerwig's love of womanhood and women is just like, there's one particular moment towards the end, we can talk about this in the spoiler chat, where that kind of comes through. And I thought that was wonderful. And it's refreshing. It's so refreshing to have this kind of inventive presence. So I just want to kind of dive back in and watch it again.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, it's sort of what I said before about, even as problematic as Barbie has been known, we haven't recovered this, but like Barbie as a brand and it's like as a child's toy or little girl's toy, representing women as like this version has been
objectified, high beauty standards,
unrealistic, ridiculous beauty standards. That's been something that's like, if you're not like, for a long time it's been, I'd say, out of fashion. I'm not a little girl. I don't have a daughter that I would buy toys for, so I'm really out of the loop. But from what I'm aware, it's not considered like the most cool toy to get for your little girl right now. Right? So, but that there is no doubt that people of Greta Gerwig's age and 10 years plus and minus would have played and loved Barbies. Despite them being problematic, you can tell that everyone still had this wonder of playing dress up, playing fantasy. And you just do see that. You do see that regardless of like how problematic this is, there is something incredibly beautiful and special about like dressing someone up and playing with them in a world, creating a fantasy where everything's okay. And that that the film indulges that fantasy for people. And that's a really cool thing to like figure out.
It makes you realize that Barbie is so iconic. It's a word that, like Beatles, it's just like the Beatles, not the insect, obviously, but it's so iconic and filled with so just down to one word, Coca-Cola. I think understanding, you're right. It's funny that to have a brand that is that iconic, but also has been that dormant.
Yeah.
No other Barbie film, to my knowledge, has been.
And I'm not talking about like the kids ones that go out for like this 45 minutes long. I mean like Barbie film. Like just think, that moment where Ken gets like injured in inverted commas.
Oh yes.
And it's like they go to the medical thing and it opens up and he gets like the scan. It's like, oh, I guess I'm okay, because that's how a child playing who sent Ken to hospital would treat Ken, and he'd be fixed within about 80 seconds.
I will say in the first act, I was enjoying it, but it was so distinct and unique in its own voice. I was with it, but I was in my head. I was like, "What?"
It's a lot.
I'm
singing
just
number.
That's the thing. That's why I think I also enjoy it on a second viewing, because I think I was kind of. You just want to. This first viewing, you're kind of gazing at what Gerwig is doing and her whole world, and you want to be part of it. And so in that first act, when they're building the world of the Barbie, I was like, I'm just trying to work out what the rules are here and how the world works and everything. But I'm sure when I go back in the second viewing, I'll know all of that. Yeah. And I'll be able to see the deeper, funnier, more intrinsic things. Here's an email about Barbie from Travis, who says, "Hi Barbies. I started listening to you guys on my way to a half marathon a few months ago, and I've listened ever since. I associate the pod with that great memory now.
Nice.
I've written in before, but I haven't got it. I've written in before, but you haven't gotten to it yet, so no worries. Sorry, Travis, we do have a lot, and
we have to prioritize the Barbie.
Yeah, we have to prioritize the Barbie one, so we're getting to this one first. Anyway, I just watched Barbie last night. Firstly, I want to say that I really felt connected to the audience as a whole and felt like part of an experience. Normally in theatres, I try to switch off and go full tunnel vision and ignore everyone else in the room. But watching Barbie, though, it felt like everyone was having a great time, and I didn't feel the need to do this. And it felt like a collective rather than an individual. That's amazing.
That's such a cool.
That's exactly what we're kind of touching on here.
Yeah.
That is what cinema is at its heart, and I think it's.
Have you heard everyone's? I mean, you said it today. Like people have been saying, "Cinema's back." Because literally 2 weeks ago, we were like, cinema might be dead. I know we weren't saying that, but he was like, oh, I think I've become very simple. So very simple about this. The films that are good are doing well.
Yes. The films that are bad.
All the analysis about, is it the streamers?
No.
Is it the pay? No. The films that are good are doing well.
I think it's also goes to show that the fate of cinema is in the audience's hands.
Yeah.
Right? Don't try to think you're smarter than an audience. Don't think that the audience will let you know. Trust the audience to inform your decision. Anyway, secondly, Travis writes, I had no idea about the plot going in. Neither did I, actually. I had no idea about the whole
I knew she was
concept.
going to go into the real world.
Oh, really? I didn't know. Okay. I had no idea about the plot going into it and had a complete open mind and was thoroughly surprised. The cinematics were The cinematics were amazing. The cinematics is a descriptor? I've never heard that. What, like just...
Oh, is it a noun?
The cinematic what? The
I'll give it
cinematics.
to you.
Do you mean
I'll
like
give
the
it to you.
cinematography? The cinematics?
Yeah.
Just the general cinema vibe? What does that mean?
Well, if you have a cinematic... I think it works, yeah.
The cinematics were amazing and didn't feel cheap or childish. It felt it very comfortably fit into this perfect slot in my mind of knowing what it is, not taking itself too seriously, but also not going completely the other direction either. I knew exactly what it was. Yeah, you can almost respond to it quite intuitively. Yeah. Again, I can't overstate some of the shots I saw, and we'll be looking out for Greta Gerwig's work in the future. I think going in with zero expectations for this film and no knowledge of the plot is exactly the way to do this. Yeah. We have been trying to... we've not revealed anything more than you would have got in a trailer, less than, actually. We've been very minimal on the plot detail in this review. I don't really have a question for you guys, but just wanted to expand my thoughts and send that in. So, love the pod. Sirens on our end. Travis from Ireland. Thank you, Travis, on Barbie.
Guys, we have plenty of Barbenheimer emails from you, but I'm sure many of you will be getting to the films in the coming weeks. If you did have impressions on Barbie, please do send them in to hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. We'd love to sort of keep getting feedback about them in the coming weeks.
And do you think we got it right? Did we miss something?
I do have something to say. There has been a sort of criticism of the film from certain types of people on the internet.
Right-wing conservatives, yeah.
Basically, this criticism that the Barbie film is presenting gender roles in an incredibly reductive and simplistic view, especially towards men.
I completely disagree.
And I think, like, when I see that and I see it's a massive satire, right? Because I indulged some of these reviews for like a few minutes just to be like, let me see your point here. And basically they're saying that the depiction of Ken and men in general being like emotionally volatile and stupid. And I'm almost like, do you understand that, like, yes, Barbie represents an extreme world, but the real world they present to you is also not real and kind of meant to be. It is a satire. It is meant to, like, poke fun at everything that we've done and make it laugh. As a man, I never felt, like, personally attacked by, like...
I think, can I say, if you're a man and you watch Barbie, or, I mean, these people probably wouldn't watch Barbie, but if you're a man and you watch Barbie and you feel threatened or misrepresented, I think...
And you think you, in any way, are representative of, like, those men.
I think you've got bigger issues
and also, I think, like, for women, like, that idea of femininity is also like incredibly strange.
I thought the jokes about men in the film were very, very funny, and we're all aware of it. And it's like, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not consensus. It's just I
love there's a moment where he goes to like a corporate job. And he goes to this guy. He's like, "Hi, I'd like a job." And he's like, "Well, do you have an MBA?" "No." "Well, if you get one, we can give you one." And he's like, "You guys are not doing patriarchy very well." And he's like, "Well, we actually are. We're just a lot more subtle about it now." Like, oh, that's so funny. I think this idea that like men are secretly like doing the patriarchy behind
playing
the back.
The face of being good, but actually,
that's very funny. That is
very funny. Yeah, of course it is. Just look at the news. I think that the whole Ken subplot with the Ken sort of realization I hadn't expected at all.
No,
and I think. The whole point that the Ken thing builds to, I think, is really... We'll get into that. But that is, guys, that is our Barbie review. We'll watch out for the spoiler one coming out later this week, but let us know your thoughts and we'll get to them. That was Barbie.
So, George, our first ever episode of Pulp Kitchen is titled something like Predicting Nolan's New Film.
Yeah, or Reacting to Nolan's New Film.
Yeah, you're right. That was nearly 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I think that fact that we were anticipating this film 2 years ago really sums up how excited you and I and film fans get to discover a new Nolan film. Yeah. He's never afraid to bring the biggest possible idea to the table. In so many ways, his films have always represented, modern cinema, very cutting edge, often futuristic, but despite that, they all have this timeless quality. It's very much in a sort of stripped back, old school approach, a preference for analog filmmaking. VFX is more of a seasoning than a whole centerpiece for the film, very much trendy now. And it's the marrying of those two that I think really defines Nolan's style in 2023. And I say, like, discover a Nolan film. His films are always puzzles that need to be solved, right? And, as always, you and I, very excited to go and see it. We've been talking about it all year. And it's more that we're not just excited to see it, I think it's exciting to unpack it and discuss it. And I think even though his films are always highly regarded, he's definitely a divisive filmmaker. I think if you look at films like Dark Knight Rises, Tenet, Interstellar, like people do sometimes, despite like praising it and acknowledging for what it's done, he does often divide audiences sometimes, because again, the biggest idea possible, of course, told in the biggest way. I mean, I mentioned this other idea the other week, that he seems to be flipping between big sci-fi idea, retelling of historical war film, back to big sci-fi idea, and now we've got like retelling of moment in history. I had a very surface understanding of this story, of the story of Oppenheimer. I knew the name, I knew what he had done, but I really didn't know much about the detail of it, and I was quite excited to go. I'm quite happy for Chris Nolan to just take me on that journey. So this film is a retelling of Oppenheimer's life. It is a Nolan screenplay based on the 2005 novel American Prometheus, which covers Oppenheimer's first intersection with quantum physics in the late 1920s through to the final moments of World War II and the period into the late 1950s following it. He was known as the father of the atomic bomb, with numerous other real scientists like Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, Edward Teller, Richard Feynman. And what we find is that Oppenheimer is recruited into a race to build the first atomic bomb faster than the Nazis. There's sort of this sense that this escalating World War II is all sort of culminating in one point, which is going to be who can create the biggest weapon of mass destruction that is going to end the war. And Oppenheimer is recruited by a very terrified General Groves, played by Graves, played by, is it Groves?
I think it's Groves.
Played by Matt Damon. And so in one sense, it's this depiction of the Manhattan Project, which Oppenheimer was the head of, but also very much concerned with his life, both before the Manhattan Project and afterwards, his intersection with politics, his personal life, and how that all ultimately culminates in this story. It's a story that's told in very Nolan way in two different periods of time.
Three even.
That's three technically, yeah you're right. Notable in the ways in which colour is used, one in black and white, one in colour. The stuff in colour very much being from Oppenheimer's perspective, and later in life told from sort of a more objective view. And we've got this sort of Nolan cutting of, people talking about the impact of things that have happened as you're watching them in the same scene happening in front of you. We've got a huge cast involved in this. You've got
more than I realised would be. In the same way that Barbie has lots of surprise, like, people turning up for one scene.
Lots of people, I was like, oh, he's in it.
Well, this has, I was like, oh, this has every white male actor.
Yes. I will preface that it's a very male-heavy cast, but like, that this story of history is very heavy. So we've got Cillian Murphy, Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Jason Clarke, Benny Safdie, Rami Malek, Alden Ehrenreich, Josh Hartnett, Dane DeHaan, Gary Oldman, Tony Conti, Casey Affleck, Kenneth Branagh. There are some more in there.
Did you say Josh Peck as well?
Yeah, Josh Peck is in there. Yeah, he's in there for
Jack
a scene.
Quaid.
Jack Quaid. I mean, it just endless. And
I will say Rami Malek, for most of the runtime, I thought, are you not going to have any lines?
Yeah, is this it? I imagine he does come into his own. But George, Oppenheimer, as we said before, we went to go and see it at the projected IMAX film as part of Barbenheimer weekend. How did you get on with it?
So Oppenheimer, it's so much to take in, it's so much to digest, particularly also we've had so much anticipation with it. I think broadly speaking, I can say that I think Oppenheimer is pretty good, with things that I am less keen on. No deep intrinsic problems necessarily. I think a lot of my issues with it come down probably to personal taste.
Right.
But I do think on the whole, broadly speaking, there's a lot to get on with and a lot to enjoy here. Let's talk about the good stuff first. A bit like you said with Greta Gerwig and Barbie, as soon as this begins, as with all Nolan films, it is clear he has an idea, he has a vision, and you are watching that, good or bad, throughout the whole 3-hour runtime. And I was absolutely ready to take that in. I was happy to be in the presence of someone who was making the film in the way that the film they wanted to make in the way they wanted to make it. I think that everything that is Nolan-esque, and we've been coming to know about Nolan, is there. Strong visuals, fantastic Hoyte van Hoytema cinematography. Yeah. I think uncharacteristic maybe of a Nolan, or maybe I haven't paid attention to it as much as before, an incessant, unbroken score throughout every single scene. Not Hans Zimmer this time, I believe.
No,
it's
sorry, forgive me, I'll get it up. It's Ludwig Göransson.
And thank you. It is also, just even though it is classic Nolan, non-linear, cuts back and forth. There are actually, you can distill Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 into distinctive chapters. With Act 1, I was really captivated. Sorry, I was on the whole captivated throughout, but with Act 1 in particular, I really enjoyed the interrogation of Oppenheimer as a character pre-Manhattan Project. And what I realized is, this is a genre we've never seen Nolan do before, a biopic. And I was interested to see how Nolan does that, and it was really interesting to see. And I was realizing that Nolan has not had a deep lead protagonist that he's been able to base a film on, I would say, since Memento, because, hear me out, Tenet, the protagonist, the character, is called the protagonist, that has zero depth to build anything on. Dunkirk is an ensemble. Yeah. Interstellar, yes, Matthew McConaughey is the lead character, but it's not about him. In the same way, Inception is more about Cobb, I agree, but I think
it's still a very cold
the film is about
Cobb's life,
exactly, and I think the Prestige is big, is more about stuff. But this is the one time I think a singular protagonist is the sole is the primary focus of Nolan's attention.
And Oppenheimer's in basically 95% of this film.
Absolutely, and Nolan has said he tries to make the film as much as possible from Oppenheimer's perspective. Yeah. Commanded by a fantastic performance by Cillian Murphy. We knew he was great. I feel like now, as Robert Downey Jr. says, the wider world gets to see you. But he has always been fantastic, and he delivers absolutely. In a way, he captures this period voice that Oppenheimer has that is is probably a distant cousin of Daniel Plainview. And I think there's more than a few touches of There Will Be Blood.
It's a lost film, actually. American accent, isn't it?
Yes, it's slightly patrician, slightly developed, but it's clearly educated.
And they will not believe it until they've used it.
Yeah. It's and the There Will Be Blood is, it sounds a bit of a lazy comparison, but just a few times with Cillian Murphy with a funny accent standing in the desert with a pointy hat looking at a derrick being built, and I was like, there's something going on here. I also think actually the film bears quite a close resemblance to Damien Chazelle's First Man in the study, not just in the cinematography actually as well, but like the study of a historic figure from a particular period in American history that is got other things going on in their life. And you and I have both said First Man, I think, is an underrated film.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I love, there's bits in the first act where the editing is showing Oppenheimer as a young man, and it's intercutting with visions of a universe that he is struggling to understand. He is a man tainted by genius, and he's seen the raw chaos of the universe and trying to put it together before his very eyes. And what I also love is Nolan is able to show that this is at a time and a context where the universe and our perception of reality was changing. It's not just science. We see him listening to jazz. We see him reading T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. We see him engaging with like psychotherapy and looking at Picasso paintings. And it's like that post-First World War period, that interwar period, was everyone's imagination and perception of what the world can be, of following on from the horror of World War One, was up for question. Everything was being debated. And he actually does say that later in a conversation, but
ideology of how you run the world. Like
exactly. Everything. Why can't there be a revolution of ideas in every single sector? And that's what he was trying to bring to America. And I really enjoyed that. And, like I said, captivated, enthralled by the sheer scale and cinematicness of Oppenheimer. If I was to say what Oppenheimer doesn't quite work for me, is that I think I have a couple of points. My main thing is that again, this might be personal taste. I just think it's important to remember that this is a 3-hour film, and I don't actually mind it being a 3-hour film. I was with it. I just wish a couple of times that Nolan gave me, as an audience member, more time to think, and more importantly, more time to feel. The longer the film went on, the more that pace I described, it hits early on with incessant score and dialogue and information. It hits that point very early on, and that's great and that's thrilling. But over the course of 3 hours, it stays at that point. And I think that's, the longer the film goes on, does a slight disservice to what's happening. And I became increasingly aware that scenes started to be told, became very similar and almost started to blend in with each other. Obviously, there are key distinctive moments aside, like the Trinity test, etc. Scenes kind of rolled into each other. And I felt increasingly towards the end that he was bombarding me with information. Like I said, I know that he's passionate about this subject, but it became to the point where I felt like Nolan was almost possessive of this story and trying to cram in every single bit of information that was that he read into this film. And I actually think what would have helped, but what I think personally, what I would have liked, I'm not telling Nolan how to make a film, I would have liked it if 20 to 30% of the information in this film was taken out and let the rest of the film breathe and let me understand and connect to the film in a non-information based way. And what I mean is there are countless scenes of people coming in, giving you information in acronyms and things about events and names and details. And after a while, I was like, this isn't necessary to me to get into this film. For example, there's one bit, it's a silly bit to focus on, but it just goes to show you the sheer number of details that you're bombarded with. Like, around the time of the test, Jack Quaid's character just says, "Don't give me those glasses. The UV will protect me. The glass in the car will protect me." And you're thinking, "Oh, that's interesting." And that moment, it doesn't actually go anywhere. It's not really relevant.
Right,
and I felt like saying that might be interesting, and I'm sure there's a reason you included that, Nolan. But actually, for the story you're trying to tell, I don't think that's necessary to me. You're just filling me full of information. And I felt sometimes like Nolan was sat in front of me, reading this textbook, really giving me all the information he needed. And I felt like saying, cinema is more than just how much information you can give me. Particularly the third act as well, which I felt was almost... But like he was doing almost for the sake of biography. I'm like, no, think of the story you're trying to tell. Can we just give us a moment to process this and think about this in a way where you're not telling me the whole time? It's almost like we were saying with Barbie, becoming a little bit didactic. And let me feel. I know Nolan's not typically known for being feeling and emotional. I'll get onto that. But I just thought a couple of moments, let me connect to this a little bit, Nolan. Let this sink in instead of give me the latest factoid and the latest bit of information or trivia from that time. To give you an anecdote, just to compare to that, by the way, it's like my parents last month went to see Bruce Springsteen at a concert, right? And he played a 3-hour set, right? So like Nolan, 3-hour film. And I asked my parents afterwards, like, how was it? And they were like, he was good, but he came on and he like went in for it straight away, and he played every song at 11.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that every song then sounded the same. Over the course of 3 hours, every song started to sound the same because it was just, there was no distinction in it. And I would have liked a little bit more nuance in the way that was told. It's a bit more of an ebb and flow. So that's why I said take away like 20, 30% of the information. Big thing, just personally, Nolan can't do women. He doesn't know how to do women. He doesn't really know how to do people, but I'll start with the women first. When Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh are basically the only female characters worth noting. Olivia Thirlby comes in at one point, but her character is introduced and out of the film so quickly you don't have a chance to blink. With Emily Blunt, I think she is kind of wasted. She's brought into the film hither and dither, sort of to relate to Oppenheimer's things, but I just felt completely underused or misused Emily Blunt, which is such a thing. She's such a talent. And again, it was pretty quick. I was like, not another alcoholic, dejected wife, Nolan. Come on, please.
That's a scene I did
Do you see women in another way? Like, can we see women in another way? And frankly, I thought the whole Florence Pugh thing could have just been not there. Could have not been there. I could have done without that whole thing. I understand it to an extent.
I think it became, I mean, that's a spoiler thing. We can pick up on the spoilers, but...
All right, you know what, we'll talk about that in the spoiler, but I think there's some elements that... but that's another point of like information where it's like...
I completely agree with you, like the female character, a story, if you're looking at a story which is dominated by men, you have a decision of how you want to include women, right? If you're saying, I can't see the women involved in this, it's the wife and its romantic partner, if we're being really cynical, you are then choosing how you want to involve women in that story based on the research, and I did find it a slightly poor inclusion for that.
I think that Robert Downey Jr. is great, and I love seeing... I was going to ask this, have you ever seen a non-Marvel, non-comedic Robert Downey Jr. performance?
Zodiac.
Thank you. Well done. Yeah. You're right. And I've missed that Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, me too.
It was great to see him back.
Oh, fantastic.
I was also thinking, if anyone's seen... have you ever seen Chaplin, where he plays Charlie Chaplin?
No.
Richard Attenborough film? It was great. That. And I really enjoyed seeing that back. I do think that the third act, where it really goes into committees, hearings, paperwork, bureaucracy. I thought, Nolan, come on, I don't need all this to get me through. I found the black and white colour unnecessary, frankly, and a distraction. It didn't help, it didn't aid or anything. I just found it a distracting stylistic choice, which he's done before. And at the beginning, we're given, like Dunkirk, a number and a title.
And then it goes away.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's like, it shows fission. Oppenheimer, it says fission, and I think with Strauss's fusion, the other way around. And then that's never dealt with again. Doesn't need to be there. It's not like a problem, but I'm like, no, just less, Nolan, less clutter.
I think I needed the black and white to tell between.
Really? What,
yeah,
because also it's not like it's about the past. It's not even the future or the present day rather. It's Strauss's particular point of view.
Yes, but that, like a lot of Strauss's stuff, the black and white was taking place in that very specific week in the mid-1950s, right? And then evolving on from that. So to differentiate that from a very fast-moving first hour and a half.
True.
I think I did appreciate it, but I can see what you mean with being jarring or something.
So I'm sorry, I think I've actually spent probably a little bit too long on what I didn't think worked for me. But that's because, in a way,
we're holding it to a very high standard.
Also, like, I'm not saying I take Nolan for granted, but like I got exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about the things that didn't work because I wasn't expecting that in a way. But I think it is. If you asked me what a Nolan biopic would look like, it would be exactly this. And I think, again, a bit like Barbie, I would look forward to kind of diving back in there and getting a hold of it and just being in awe of it again because some of it is really spectacular. And there is a darkness and a kind of sinister to us about big, existential questions. Again, a bit like Barbie.
Yeah.
They get under your fingernails. That do kind of stay with you. But sorry, James, that's my kind of initial knee-jerk reaction to Oppenheimer. How did you find it?
My criticism of Oppenheimer is similar to yours. Out the gate, coming out of it, I thought that is an incredibly impactful film. It's a film that really does blow you away, pun very much intended.
I would say I felt exhausted.
Yeah, and I'll get on to like sort of the way in which I think you touched on, the way in which it gives you information and pacing. Just out of the gate, Cillian Murphy, incredible. This whole idea that we've been really used to for a long time of using large format to show your landscapes and your wides, but like, have you ever thought about putting it in front of your main character, and you give a character like that trying to contemplate as much as he does. And
his blue marble eyes.
Incredible eyes that with 1,000-yard stare, he's not just looking at what's in front of him, he sees the consequences of the entire future of humanity. And that really did work. It is a film that is incredibly impactful. I think the film demands an enormous amount from its audience,
yes.
Right? And it's not just the fact that it's a 3-hour runtime. It's the information you need to keep up with.
That's right there.
The score rarely breaks, and it carries you through this incredibly relentless, restless story with very long dialogues, intense monologues, talking scenes with very fast Aaron Sorkin-esque style overlapping. It reminded me of the overlapping scenes in Steve Jobs.
Yes.
When you've got those like arguments happening through.
I would say some of it Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
And Betty Safdie.
I even put like in a much more, because I think it's one of the more intimate films Nolan's done. A lot of Terrence Malick work.
Yes,
right?
I see
very
that.
close-up camera, a view of a person remembering things through time, informing their version of actions now. Like that was very Terrence Malick for me. I think what happens is you've got this. I was immediately engrossed. I thought fascinating.
Yeah.
Late 1920s physics. This really cool idea of you are a genius. You need to find your place in physics. I know who you should study under. And this whole idea of like you have now intersected with quantum physics. We are relying on you as scientists to uproot your life, move to this university and teach this entire nation about your area of quantum physics. And you can't upload it to the internet. You have to write it on a chalkboard and hope one person turns up so you can communicate it. I thought that's such a cool thing that you've brought this physics there. It builds to this incredible building of stakes with Matt Damon and the threat of communism and what this means to beat Hitler to it. And the lead up to the Trinity test, which I thought was a fantastic build up. The tension that was built was everything that you expect from a Nolan film. Really well done. The Trinity test happens, and we all know from history that it's successful and the ramifications of it. I think because there's like an hour and a half, maybe even 2-hour build up to that moment.
Yeah. And an hour after that, so yeah.
And I think what happens is there is a post-Trinity test come down, right? There's this very cool moment after the Trinity test where we're realizing what this all means. Yeah. And instead of breathing, and like I think you said, giving you a chance to think, we jump into this undoubtedly very, very interesting period of 10 years following afterwards, but told very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I think, the first time I saw Inception, I thought, that was amazing. I just about kept up with what was going on. I think watching this, I was just about keeping up with what was going on. I'm actually very much looking forward to rewatching it for that reason. I know that there is so much information in there that I really want to pick up. Now I know the dynamic and where it all leads to in the end, which I think is a really great ending. I would love to go in again. I'd love to watch it with subtitles. And just
that was what I was thinking.
that
And that's
great.
not always a compliment, though, to
I know what you mean, but just like you have that post moment, and the way in which she decides to shoot that is really definitive and interesting. And then it's a lot of names that people I think I know the name of, a lot of places I haven't quite got, and a lot of dynamics that I've been distracted from for the last hour. That being said, I still found the telling of that story very compelling. The acting talent in the room for all of those scenes was just remarkable. I want to give a shout out to Jason Clarke, who I thought was really good. I always
love him.
He's really just sort of one of the best supporting actors you can cast in your film these days. He's just really solid, really reliable.
If you don't mind me interjecting, I would say Josh Hartnett is almost got a bigger role than Florence Pugh in this.
Absolutely. And I forgot he was in this film. Josh Hartnett.
And he's in it a lot.
I think he'd make a great Batman. After I saw that, I think he'd make a good Batman. You don't think so?
A good question for another time.
So going from starting in the late 1920s, I think, and going to the end of history, I thought, God, this covers a lot more than I thought. I thought we were talking like 10 years.
Yeah,
it really does cover a lot. And so the dialogue rocketing at full speed, does sort of wear on you a little bit.
Springsteen playing at full volume, that's what I'm saying.
That being said, I did find the ending satisfying. We'll talk about it in spoilers. I did find its message and how it got to that point. And like I talked about Nolan's films being a puzzle, and it's something that you unpick. And then, like in The Prestige, it's a literal puzzle of what happened and how the hell it works. And this one I thought was really interesting. It is a puzzle about a person. And I'm often thinking throughout the film, which I thought was really interesting. I don't know, is Oppenheimer good? Or is he bad? Exactly. And there were so many moments I thought he was right, and so many moments where he's very wrong.
That's also, what I got the There Will Be Blood comparison, because I'm looking at this Daniel Plainview kind of like villain in a way.
And so it's this idea of tackling this huge idea and using the puzzle of discovering who this person is to figure it out. And all in all, I enjoyed it. I was really impacted by it. I could say I was affected by it, and it really stuck with me. The sense of impending dread. And I'm going to talk about it more in spoiler, but there's this deep, unsettling sense of instability and radioactivity and explosion running through the entire film. And I thought that has really, really impacted me. And it was very stunning. An intense, dense, thick script.
Yes, dense, that's the...
And it's demanding. It's really, really demanding. And I think people who went to see Barbie in the morning and are now having to tackle this, I think that's a lot to take in. I'm not being patronising to audiences. I just think it's an incredibly demanding film.
And just on that as well about being patronising, we're not saying patronising to the audience. I also just want to reiterate, when I say that this film could have done with 30% less information, I'm not saying that because an audience can't understand it or an audience can't comprehend it. It's just that I feel like saying to Nolan, like, what's the objective here? What's the goal? If you really want to tell this story in a cinematic way, personally, I kind of feel like cinema doesn't have to rely on information. You rely on the language of cinema to fill in those gaps. And, maybe it needed more B-roll, James. Maybe it needed to be the opposite of Avatar: Way of the Water, and it needed to chuck in more B-roll to give that kind of breathing time. But yeah, no, I'm not saying that an audience can't keep up. But again,
I sort of jumped into like my criticism of it. It was the same as you, essentially, like a little bit different. I think I'm overall a little bit more positive about it than you are. That experience of retelling that story and capturing it on that scale is just impressive. Every time I come out of a Nolan film, I think he is an incredibly impressive filmmaker. Despite the flaws, I think
interesting. Yeah, because I came out. I wasn't shaking when I came out. I was. The film had like completed its mission for me, and I was like landed. I was like, yeah, I'm exhausted now, and I'm kind of like information. I've been thumped over the head with so much information. I got it. I don't know. I came out with a sneaking sense of like, I don't know. It's that thing of like, for all the noise and all the scale, all the visuals, it's the story and the people and the emotions at the heart that I think you struggle with. And the it's not that I don't think he understands. I think he understands Oppenheimer. I think he gets that. But it's the interpersonal relationships and the way that's presented. And stuff might seem very small scale when you're dealing with the Manhattan Project, but that is the glue, that is the fabric between, the story. And I would have...
just more emphasize on like the relationship to him and humanity.
And we'll talk about it. There's one particular decision where he decides to shoot a very personal thing relating to Oppenheimer in a way that made me go, oh, Chris, I think
I know the movement you mean.
I'm like, I don't think you, which made me go, oh, Chris, you don't get people. I don't think you get people, you get machines, which is fine. Not every director can do it. Look, I know
that you'll talk about it in the
yeah, but you know the better I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like I've come across a little bit too negative. I do still think that it's it is a new film from Nolan.
Yeah.
For all the Nolan traits, I do like the fact that I've seen a biopic. He's tried to do something different, and I appreciate that, and I'm still I'm thankful that please, in a way, he's kind of on a similar vein to people like in a way a bit like Tarantino, who doesn't always hit the mark with me, or sometimes I'm like off, but I'm just so glad that he's out there doing, or Wes Anderson. I'm just, it might not always be a bit of hit and miss, but I'm just glad you're out there doing your thing and continue to do that. That's what I would say.
It's gorgeous to look at.
Absolutely stunning. I
love the use of macro, is usually special effects, but like just visions of, like, very early on in the film, neurons spinning violently, sparks, flashes of a wall of fire spinning across the world.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
The line that's in the trailer that Matt Damon says, maybe it's because it's the most important thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. Do you think that's a silly line?
No.
I can't decide whether that's a good line or a bad line. There are good lines in this. For all the sometimes flawedness of Nolan's writing, there are a couple of moments early on. There's one bit when he's talking with Einstein and another bit somewhere. I'm like, that's a good little thing there. But then when that line happens, I'm like, is that grandstanding? I don't know.
I think it's sort of there to communicate the stakes and to
communicate it literally.
Yeah. There's a spoiler. I have to say it in spoiler chats. Yeah.
But I'd still say broadly on the whole a good definitely still something to see.
I'm seeing it again on Monday and
IMAX.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to knowing how the central metaphor ends, the information I'm given in the beginning, where that comes to, and the nice little, I wouldn't say twist, but like, real sort of like curling of the plot towards the end. I'm looking forward to now watching, knowing that, going back. It's so Nolan. I need to now go back to the start to understand the beginning. I'm like ready to take it in again, really give it a chance for a second viewing, prep my day for it, because...
Just one last thing. The discussion now has become about an Academy nomination, Oscar nomination for Cillian Murphy for Best Actor, which I think would be likely. I also think Best Supporting Actor perhaps for Downey Jr.
Yeah.
My thing is that, well, I'm glad you agree, but my point is that it's July.
It's early.
It's a very long time to sustain.
When are the nominations out?
The nominations for the Oscars come out late January.
Yeah, okay. Put
it this way, I think Brendan Fraser only just about stayed back in the race. Remember, he started the race. I know we're talking about Oscars now, but like the starting gun was fired for The Whale in September, and he was the front runner. And then he dropped, and then he fell behind, and Austin Butler was the front runner, and then he came back again. And that's because it took 6 months. You're talking like a 9-month. Sorry, math's a bit skewed.
Austin Butler was also early.
Yeah, you're true. Yeah, but it's a long time. I mean, he didn't win.
But also, we heard about Brendan Fraser's performance in The Whale before we had an image of The Whale. Good point, It got weirdly like pre-hyped before the film had any marketing.
That's a good point. Anyway, we'll follow that over the next few months. But that is Oppenheimer. We've got some emails we'll read out in a bit. But if you disagree, agree, send us your thoughts. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, love to hear
when you have. I agree. When you have a film that is so multi-layered and so
much
I have no doubt that my second viewing will be deeper, richer, and perhaps more rewarding. And I'm so open, so excited, a bit like with Barbie again, to go back and dip my toe in. I'm great that we've had these two very unique, distinct voiced films come out.
Yeah. We're spoiled.
We're lucky.
Guys, we're doing, as we've already said in this episode, if you want to check out our spoiler conversation Friday, we'll be uploading spoiler thoughts. We're going to record those now. So otherwise,
yes,
on with the show.
Guys, it's really important to have a great skincare routine, Whether you want to make a great first impression or just feel better about your skin, Caldera Lab is clinically proven to reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging.
The regimen is a twice-a-day formula to help transform your skin. It's really easy and only takes 30 seconds. This includes the clean slate to start and end your day, leaving your skin feeling refreshed. Then there's the base layer to moisturize and hydrate your skin. Then you have the Good, which is the go-to at-night face serum to help reduce the visibility of wrinkles and fine lines. And if you wanted to take it a step further, you have the Icon, which is an eye serum which helps reduce fine lines, dark circles, and puffiness.
Use our exclusive code PULP20, that's PULP20, to enjoy 20% off Caldera's best products. You can find the link in our description. Welcome to the email section of the show, where we read out your emails. This week, it's all about Barbenheimer. So we've had to prioritize the Barbenheimer emails. We know there is a bit of a backlog with emails that have been sent in. The fact is, guys, we get more emails now than we ever have done before.
Backlog with everything in this show. We're just backlogged.
I'm backed up more than my proctologist. What? No, it's like a
Physically backed up for a while now.
We're sorry that there are a bit of a backlog with emails, but like I said, we get more than we ever have done, and we love them, and we will read through them, and we do sort them, but sometimes we have to...
We have to be selective now.
Guys,
the topical emails will get front-loaded.
Exactly.
If you're thinking, I want to send an email, I want it to be read, make it about something that's out right now.
Yes. Otherwise, we'll be reading Barbenheimer emails out in 2 months' time, and that's just no good.
Yeah.
On that note, though, let's read out some Barbenheimer emails. The first is from Michael. Michael says, all right. Michael here again. Apologies in advance if this email ends up being excessively long, but I simply had to write in as I'm fresh from the cinematic event of the year. Barbenheimer, of course.
Yes.
And I'm absolutely bursting with excitement about it. I'll preface this email by saying that I've recently been experiencing a bit of a film rut, akin to something I remember George describing on a previous episode when talking about his film-going experience before watching Parasite. Yeah, that's well remembered, Michael. Yeah, that's exactly what I had late 2019 into early 2020.
Normal.
It happens, especially if you watch a lot of them. It happens. For whatever reason, many films I've seen recently that many others think are great just haven't resonated with me, and I was starting to worry if my love of film was dwindling all of a sudden. But I'm relieved to write in and say that I thought Oppenheimer was completely and utterly stunning, and has immediately become my favorite film of the year so far.
Nice.
For me, the film succeeds as both a massive, thrilling spectacle and as a far more contemplative character study. The latter due in no small part to the staggeringly impressive Cillian Murphy.
Yeah,
it's such a nuanced and expressive performance, at once confident and conflicted, with this sort of far-off stare that convinces you he can actually see between the atoms that he works with. That's very good. The entire cast is sublime. I thought Robert Downey Jr. was in the form of his career, and when Emily Blunt or Florence Pugh, anything but terrific. Good point.
I think there's also, sorry, just to jump in on performances there, there's this effect I think of when I talked at the beginning of the episode about how happy those actors are to be a part of it. Even like Robert Downey Jr., who gets like fuck you money from Marvel, like 9-figure deals, he really doesn't need to do this film. They do it purely for the love of the film and the love of the art, and you just really feel like everyone's on the top of their game. Yeah, and Cillian Murphy just can't be said enough how brilliant he is in it.
But my personal favorite scenes were those involving Murphy and Matt Damon's army general, whose chalk and cheese natures bounce off each other brilliantly. I watched it all in awe, and my girlfriend and I both found the bomb test scene, that's no spoiler, part of which is shown in the trailer, to be properly edge-of-your-seat viewing. If I had one minor quibble, while I still massively enjoyed the third act involving I would personally have liked to see more on how the results of Oppenheimer's work impacted his mental and emotional state, which is briefly touched upon, but not hugely fleshed out. I think, I guess that's fair. Yeah. But as I say, a minor complaint in an otherwise immensely engaging piece of filmmaking that, despite being 3 hours long, never bored me, never seemed to drag. I thought it was fantastic, and if Cillian Murphy doesn't get an Oscar nomination, something has gone seriously wrong.
It's not... Oh, sorry, go on.
There's more, but
it's not boring.
It's no, not at all. No. Oh God, no, not
Can't
at all.
call it boring.
Absolutely, being boring is one of the worst things a film can be. One of the biggest offenses.
Or not having an effect in any sense. If your film doesn't even offend anyone, it's like it just comes out to nobody. Yeah.
Unfortunately, despite my love of all things Greta Gerwig, Margot Robbie, and Ryan Gosling, that's like Scooby-Doo, Ryan Gosling. My experience with Barbie wasn't quite as positive. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it. It was still really good fun, but I just didn't find it to be the masterpiece that many others have found it to be. I mean, there's a lot of praise being heaped on these films at the moment. It's okay to just be a little bit tempered underneath it. There are some really good laugh out loud moments, and but I found they often came down between large spells of material that just didn't land for me. Like I say, I did enjoy it, but I can't help feeling it was a victim of the gargantuan hype train it created. A bit like you were saying, the film, bigger than the film. And it ends up being good, but not great. Anyway, no questions, just my thoughts on the Barbenheimer experience. I hope you guys are getting on well and enjoying your enjoy your experience as much as I did. We're getting on fine.
Getting on well with life.
Oh, yeah. I tolerate James today.
Yeah. Sam writes into the show and says, hello, Sam again from Wiltshire.
Hi, Sam.
Or Wiltshire.
Wiltshire.
There's no Wilt, just Wiltshire.
It's definitely,
It must
there's be a T
he's
in
lost
there,
the
isn't
T
it?
in there, yeah. On Friday, I visited my local cinema and hopped onto the trend of watching Oppenheimer and Barbie back to back. I chose to watch Oppenheimer first, then Barbie, as I wanted to leave the cinema feeling positive. Right.
Back to back, straight
away, Sam.
I feel tired hearing that.
I joked to you after Oppenheimer, said, oh, George, do you want to go watch Barbie now in 10 minutes?
No.
Because I was like, I had to sit with that. We've said it 3 times now, but
No.
love Barbenheimer, not back to back.
Yeah.
This was a massive mistake. There was Oppenheimer left me really shaken and affected. Yeah. Brackets, the film was a complete masterpiece, one of Nolan's best. And immediately entering into Greta Gerwig's absurdist comedy world of Barbie left me not connected to Barbie as much as I expected. George, is this Barbenheimer imploding on itself?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
It's igniting a reaction that's setting fire to the Barbenheimer atmosphere. While I enjoyed the film overall, I didn't laugh at many of the jokes, and I didn't really enjoy the movie until about halfway through the runtime. After returning home and hearing your take on it, I believe that you two made the right decision in watching them on separate days. I believe now if you want to watch them back to back, you should watch Barbie, then Oppenheimer, but that ultimately watching them on separate days or with a few hours in between is probably the wisest decision. I now plan to rewatch both over the next week on separate days to watch and judge them in isolation. Looking forward to hear your thoughts on the movies. Which did you prefer and which had the best final line? Brackets, both are iconic and perfect in their own way. Best regards, Sam. I mean, Sam, it's too late. The weekend's gone. People have already made their
We've Barbenheimed past tense.
Yeah, absolutely. George, which one did you prefer and which one had the best final line? I go Oppenheimer.
I think that we would say that the last line is Oppenheimer because I think the last line of Barbie is a really good line for women.
Yeah. It's funny. Like,
it's funny, but I think
one.
Knee jerk. The thing is, having had this discussion today, I want to go and rewatch both. When I came out of Barbie, I felt like I preferred Barbie. These completely different films, but I thought I preferred Barbie because I got more. It was more my taste. It was more fun. It was kind of interesting. It was kind of
felt like happy.
A little bit of heart. Yeah, it was great. But I will say, the more I've thought about it, Oppenheimer has kind of lingered longer in the back of my soul because it's about the existential crisis of mankind. So
Oppenheimer's burnt itself into my eyes more.
Literally,
it's stickier.
I'd say let them be, but let them be.
I think Barbie will be looked at as more of like a huge highlight of the year for film than I think Oppenheimer will.
Yes, because as a cultural thing. Yeah. Tahar writes in next and says, hello, James.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Tahar writes in and says, hello, James and George. Hope you're both well. I want to begin this email by letting you know that I can no longer be the official Pakistani student correspondent of this podcast.
What?
Wow. Have you found someone else? As I have graduated from university.
Is it Ali Plum?
As I've now graduated from university and am now just a Pakistani looking for a job in London. Oh, okay, fair enough. You can still be, the correspondent. I did my final year thesis on how evergreen characters such as Superman or Mickey Mouse enter the public domain. Hang on. Entering the public domain. Don't read it at the same time as me.
I just moved emails.
I did my final year thesis on how evergreen characters such as Superman or Mickey Mouse entering the public domain will empower fandoms to shape them independently from media corporations. This is a topic I believe is also particularly relevant to film and the current cinema landscape of major studios sticking to established IPs. Tahar, that sounds incredibly complex, but I think I know what you mean. And good, sounds like a very, very smart essay, you clever cookie. That being said, I wanted to primarily share my thoughts on Barbenheimer, italicized with inverted commas. Having watched both on opening weekend, I watched Barbie on Friday and Oppenheimer on Sunday, giving both ample time to digest both films. Smart decision. Yeah. With Barbie, I came out having really enjoyed myself with only slight criticism of its third act. While for Oppenheimer, which I saw in 70mm at Odeon Leicester Square, I felt more compelled by the film's second half and felt the first half was a bit disjointed. Oh, interesting, the second half of Oppenheimer. Okay. However, having sat with both films for a day, I think while Barbie is flawed in its third act and does not really execute its message as effectively as it could, its success is in its cathartic nature and incredible visual style.
Yeah.
The film is unique, and its strong sense of identity is such that I struggle to remember a film that fits in the same genre as Barbie. That's true.
Yeah.
The Lego Movie being the closest match. Yeah, absolutely. Moreover, I feel the film's moments of in-your-face feminism can be genuinely refreshing and make it an enjoyable watch. On the other hand, Oppenheimer, in my view, is the better crafted film. The more I thought about the film, the more I wanted to see it again so that I could get a better grasp of the non-linear storytelling. I think its structure really adds to its continuing tension even after the bomb has gone off. However, while Oppenheimer is the better film, I feel Barbie will be remembered in the longer term just for how unique of a film it is and how it appeals to a much wider audience. A bit like what you just said there.
Yeah.
Lastly, I just wanted to say that you guys have been a really enjoyable part of my past year, and I cannot wait for episode 100.
Nice.
Might I suggest having a special game show only episode with guests or even with fans?
It's a good idea. A game show. We could do a game show.
Yeah, play along at home kind of thing.
We will announce the 100th episode plans in due course. We got 15 weeks. 14 weeks. Shit.
We've got a 12-month head start.
Yeah.
18. How can you possibly know that? They're working on 100.
This is the most important scientific discovery in the history of
There are
mankind.
other podcasts right now racing towards episode 100 trying to launch. Build a
What
podcast.
are the Reservoir Hot Dogs doing?
The Kill Grills.
Every couple of weeks, instead of a marble, I put a round of Castles Countdown into a fishbowl.
This is how many games we need to launch it. A loyal siren, Tahar. Tahar, thank you so much. Oh, sent from underneath the podcast table. Oh, I like that. That's a good joke. That is a very loyal listener joke. I really appreciate it. Good email, Tahar. Thank you very much.
This one is from Naomi, friend of the show, who
Naomi.
says, "Hello guys, I watched Oppenheimer first and then Barbie after a 10-minute break."
Oh, Jesus.
I like that people are telling us what they did first.
10 minutes, half an hour at least. Come on, 10 minutes.
Then the next day, I watched Barbie again because I liked it so much with many O's. Of course, both times I was dressed completely in pink, and I felt a bit weird sitting in Oppenheimer. But I bet you weren't alone. I bet there were other people there wearing pink. I think Oppenheimer was a really good movie, and I really like Christopher Nolan's work. And Cillian Murphy is just such a good actor. I have to say, I was surprised how many awesome and well-known actors were part of the cast.
Yes.
Us two. The story was super exciting, and I think you have to be extraordinarily talented to tell a story that is already known in such an exciting and new way. Is it? It's a well-known of story, but I don't know the details of that well-known.
I think most people just know. I think most people don't know his name, but if they do, they're like, oh yeah, Oppenheimer, father of the atomic bomb, Manhattan Project.
I think it's a good story that's finally been put in the largest magnifying glass possible of pop culture, and just always World War II stuff, pre and post, is so interesting. It's fantastic. Barbie was such a great movie. I can't even say what my favorite part was. All the references to other movies made my film-loving heart beat faster. Emoji with stars in their eyes.
Yes.
Even though I've heard a lot of controversial opinions about the movie, and I think you can read as much into it as you want. When I was little, I played with Ken the same way he was shown in the movie. He was really just Ken. And when you see the movie as an adult, you start to see the parallels between Barbie Land and our real world. Not despite, but because of its provocative and socio-critical nature, I find the Barbie movie so excellent and could watch it over and over. Thank you for your awesome podcast, Naomi.
Oh, Naomi, thank you very much.
That's great.
That's great. This next email is from, I want to say Kadia, who has written into the show. I believe
Could be Khadija.
Could be Khadija, but I'm gonna go for a silent J.
All right.
I'm gonna say Kadia, who writes in with saying, "Barbenheimer, hi guys. So now that Barbenheimer week is over, I genuinely don't know what to do with my life. I think the Barbenheimer phenomenon is one of the best pop culture moments to have happened in recent years because there was something to everyone. I agree, we said that earlier. We also had a comment on TikTok that said this is the best thing that's happened in culture post-COVID.
Yes.
And I was like, that's really nice. And it is like a coming back together event.
It was people have said it, cinema is back. It was
Absolutely.
welcome back to cinema.
The girls who grew up with the iconic doll got to see Greta Gerwig breathe her to life, starring Margot Robbie, and the perfect casting for stereotypical Barbie at that. And the film lovers got to finally experience Cillian Murphy at the helm of a Christopher Nolan film. Mm-hmm. I was able to see both on opening day with my friend, and I had the greatest time. I watched Oppenheimer in IMAX first, and then Barbie, which served as the visual dessert after that.
I like that visual dessert.
Yes, it is very confectionery sort of influenced.
Do you think you could do Barbie, go for a meal, reset the digestive microbiome, and then go for Barbie? Do you think you could justify it?
You mean Oppenheimer?
Sorry, yeah. No.
You said Barbie.
Where is it?
It's here. They did Oppenheimer first.
Yeah. Do you think you could do Oppenheimer, have like a meal, like 4 hours difference?
I think I would do Oppenheimer at 10 o'clock.
AM.
Finish at 1. Have 2
Be
hours.
more like 2. Half an hour of ads. Faffing. Realistically, it would be more like 2.
Okay, I'd start at 10, get out of 1:30. I'd have 2 hours for... No, I then tell you what, I would do Oppenheimer at 10,
Yeah.
finish about 1:30, and then I would watch Barbie at 4. That's the minimum amount of time I'd give it in between.
yeah.
So I'm giving that 2.5 hours,
Yeah.
in which time I can eat, digest, process, then go back into Barbie.
Yeah. Sorry, as you were.
As a word. I've been a diehard Greta Gerwig fan ever since I watched Lady Bird in 2017. And I was a Barbie girly, so this was something I've truly been waiting for, and it did not disappoint. It was hilarious and smart and emotional, and of course, it's Greta, so I tapped into the theme of girl/womanhood that I found brilliant. But here's the thing. I enjoyed my experience of watching Oppenheimer more. Maybe it's because it was in IMAX, or maybe because it was a biopic thriller, which I found so interesting. I don't know, but the movie just blew me away. Slight pun intended. The cast were phenomenal, and I had so much fun with the little cameos. And the score, I can't get that out of my head.
Incredible.
This might be a hot take, but I think Oppenheimer is Christopher Nolan's best project yet. Anyway, love the podcast. Thank you, Kadir. That's an interesting take.
It's interesting when we spoke to some people and people who'd seen it, and it was giving impressions like it was Christopher Nolan's best film, but I'm not sure.
I think it's a... Time will tell. Time will tell. I don't know if it's...
Like, I came out of Tenet and I wasn't sure. I was sure that was not his best film. But like, to be honest, I don't think I've ever walked out of a Christopher Nolan film and given perfect score.
But you know what I've realised is that I think every Nolan film represents almost a different section of his audience. There are the people who go like, oh, I'm a prestige person. Oh, no, I'm an Interstellar person. The Interstellar fans are different. Yeah, the Interstellar Nolan fans are different to, I think, the Oppenheimer fans. And the Memento fans are different to the Batman trilogy fans, you know? And you got the Inceptions and the Tenet fans. I just feel like I can see just slightly different personalities and groups forming from that.
I think Christopher Nolan brings in new members of new audience members with every film that he does. Like, I think with Interstellar, probably he'd already got a big audience from like the Inception lot, but I reckon when he did Dunkirk, he sort of departed slightly away from big bombastical sci-fi idea. He still told it in his own way with 3 different like ways of passing time in one sit, but he really like got like a sort of Great British Film Auteur audience.
To do also sort of a looking back establishment Grey Pound movie.
Yes, yeah. Whereas I think with this one, he's sort of like almost coming back to that. Oh yes, no, then I do like him. He did the Dunkirk one, yes, indeed. And it grows and compounds. This next one is from Harry, who writes in and says, "Hello, James and George / George and James / Games and George and Games."
I see. I get it. Yes.
I hope you're well.
How droll.
Yeah. I hope you're well.
Thank
I've
you.
been an avid listener of the pod for many months now, and I've always wanted to email in, but never really found the right subject to do so for. This was until I imagine many of your other listeners would have done, decided to go and see the Barbenheimer double bill.
Nice.
I've always wanted to do a double feature at the cinema, but never really found the right films to do it with. The closest I ever got was an annual Lord of the Rings extended cut marathon with my school friends every Easter holiday when I was at school. You know, that's like a 13-hour commitment.
Yes.
It's really, I save it for when I'm the most sick. It really is a lot. It's only got around the Easter holiday when I was at school, but with the releases of Barbie and Oppenheimer being announced, I immediately knew this would be the funniest first double feature ever. As I was away on opening weekend, I utilised some annual leave to go and see both on Monday, and I had an absolute blast.
Wow.
Like any normal person, I like to have my main course before my dessert.
Yes.
So I went to a 10:30 screening of Oppenheimer
Hello.
that was mostly empty with a few retired couples and about 20 other men in their mid-20s to early 30s. I assume having the exact same
our
idea as me. Yeah. That's not empty.
No.
20 other... 20
But maybe if
other
it's a big screen, it looks empty. But
Maybe,
anyway,
yeah. Also for a Monday morning.
Yeah, 10:30 as well,
I've been to the Monday morning screenings, and it's me and another guy who looks like a journalist seeing the Mario Brothers movie. Despite the relatively early screening and heavy subject matter, I found myself gripped from start to finish and amazed at the way Nolan can make a 3-hour film involving men sat in rooms talking about quantum physics so visually and emotionally interesting. I don't want to spoil too much, but the Trinity sequence and Robert Downey Jr.'s performance were my 2 highlights, especially as I had no idea RDJ was in the film at all. Very engaging talking in rooms. Very, very good. After a quick lunch break and change into a salmon pink shirt.
Okay, he's doing my plan.
He's doing, lunch then dessert.
Good idea.
After a quick lunch break and change into also 10 a.m. Great time to see Oppenheimer. Take it in. 3 hours of concentrating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your brain's sharpest activity point. Yeah.
You know Jeff Bezos. He only has important thinking meetings in the morning. Doesn't take them in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
Yeah. He's a billionaire. After a quick lunch break and change into a salmon pink TV shirt, I returned to the cinema once again to a near full screening of Barbie filled with neon pink clad women and even a man in a full pink suit.
Fantastic.
I felt very underdressed. While I wish I'd given myself an hour or two longer between the screenings to process Oppenheimer, I can report that I absolutely adored Barbie. While the overall message of the film could have been more subtle, I really enjoyed the depth that Margot Robbie brought to the title character, and Ryan Gosling as Ken should at least get an Oscar nod for his scene-stealing performance. The set design was also perfect, as I felt that Barbie Land was a real place where toys would live. I know this email is starting to drag, so I'll wrap up, but I'd like to note that I watched both of these films having only seen the initial teaser trailers, so I went in as blind as you could and thoroughly recommend others do the same.
That's what I do.
It really lets you enjoy all the surprises a film has in store.
This guy sounds like me. This is I totally agree.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a really great but very difficult thing to do, and I have actually resigned to it because of the show, but you do try.
I saw the Barbie teaser once. I saw the Oppenheimer teaser once. I went to see Mission Impossible last week. Both full trailers came on. You know what I did, James?
You did the...
Boom, straight down.
Like a man in prayer.
Just looking down.
Well, when Killers of the Flower Moon trailer played for
No, I watched that because I hadn't seen that yet.
Right.
And the Dune 2 trailer came on and I hadn't seen that and I watched it and it was great. And as we've discussed off air, there's one shot at the end you go, but that's the end of the movie. Why did they show that one shot? That's the end of the film.
Keep up the great work. Kind regards, Harry.
And guys, just a couple of quick ones that we got on Instagram as well who responded to our call out for people's opinions on Barbenheimer. Michaela writes in and says, both were good, though Oppenheimer was at the end of the day a biopic like most others, but Barbie ate Oppenheimer for breakfast, lunch and dinner. It was funny and well done while incorporating some good commentary. Nice.
She's still wearing pink glitter as she types.
Friend of the show, Kai, wrote in and said, hi guys, the experience was great, but definitely not the best way to watch both films. Hi guys, the experience was great, but definitely not the best way to watch both films. Having 30 minutes to digest Oppenheimer alongside a warm McDonald's before being funneled into Barbie is definitely not what Nolan intended.
No.
A note on Barbie. I think a lot of people are reading it as a commentary on the genders that as they exist in society, but I think, probably wrongly, it's explicitly a commentary on the genders as they exist on screen. They basically live on a film set. There are other reasons why I think this is, but I think there are more spoilery reasons, so I'll leave it out. That's an interesting take as well. Yeah, how gender's represented on screen. Yes, a good question for another time. Connor writes in and says, Barbie, great visuals, performances, and a good message with strong themes, but I thought that it lost itself trying to actively push those themes and fell into some predictability. Also, thought it felt like Greta Gerwig wrote a strong script which, upon review by executives like those at Mattel, got watered down and made more mainstream. I don't think that. I think it's spiky. I think we're lucky to have got as spiky as it was. Enjoyed it a lot, though, and Michael Cera is God.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer, unreal performances across the board, an incredible score accompanied by some fantastic sound mixing and ultimately a technical masterpiece. A beautiful script and character development and writing that I felt we hadn't seen on this high level from Nolan before. As the most popular weaknesses, that was the weakness of his previous films. And the third and final act truly encapsulated me. Lastly, from Louise, she says, as different as these two films are, I can't help but see a common theme between them that relates to the fragile egos of men and the infinite amount of damage that can be done to everybody, including themselves, when they prioritize their own status over the greater good. On Barbie, I was disappointed by the ending and felt it pulled its punches. It seemed like it was building to something more hard-hitting, and I left a little bit unsure of what to take home. That being said, Ryan Gosling was hilarious as Ken and kind of stole the show in a very un-Ken-like fashion. I found Oppenheimer very impactful, and I was still thinking about it for hours and days after watching it.
Impactful.
What did I say?
Yeah, I'm saying,
sorry.
Impactful, that's the word I've used.
Nolan manages the combination of huge-scale action and emotional drama so well. He somehow made a story about quantum physicists creating a nuclear bomb feel very relatable, showing the devastating effect that we as humans are too flawed to be trusted with that level of power. Thank
I'd
you,
say
Louise.
it's not unanimous over whether or not people prefer one or the other.
No.
all of that correspondence is
or
showing.
which bit of which film they prefer.
like probably like the beginning or the ending.
yeah.
Barbie ended like this. But I think we've looked to review Barbenheimer. We've got two very good, very interesting, direct, intentional films made by people with a singular vision.
Yeah.
and they should not have been seen 10 minutes apart from
No,
each other.
give them the respect they deserve and see
Yeah.
them in the same weekend, but maybe not the same day.
Yeah. This week, Pulp Kitchen does not end with a game.
Because we tried to record them just now, and it didn't sound very good because
We're
we're very tired. We've
exhausted.
recorded for 4 hours.
4 hours
All I
of
can
talking.
see is mushroom clouds and pink neon. So,
Blue plastic waves.
yes, and Ryan Gosling's abs.
Guys, there's loads of games on TikTok and Instagram if you
Check
fancy
them out
them.
there, back catalogue.
We have
take a
recorded
rest off.
reviews, spoiler casts,
Yeah.
emails in the things of the things. There's plenty of content. We're sorry. Oh, we just got an email from someone about Barbenheimer. It's coming in left, right, and centre.
Guys, have a great week.
We'll be back next week with games.
And like, subscribe, follow, share, and everything. Please do. Have a great Barbenheimer week.
We're tired. New episodes every single Wednesday.
Goodbye!
Thank you.